Cognitivism. Cognitivism is all about how we receive, how we organize, and how we input information in our memory or in our mind. Okay, for us to formulate information, to think about certain information, we have this thing so-called the stimulus. So what is stimulus, by the way? Stimulus is something that triggered us to think information, to organize, and to receive them and to act it out. Okay, so first, again, stimulus, and then when we have enough reason to formulate that, that's what we call cognitive processes. So after that, of course, we act it out, and that is what we call response. So before we go further with the specific details of the response, let's have the drill first, the process or the cognitive processes. So first, we have the long-term memory. Second, sensory register, and then lastly, the short-term memory. So when we say long-term memory, it is something that we store in our mind permanently. So it is the opposite of the short-term memory. When the long-term is permanent, of course, the short-term memory is the opposite or the temporary. For example, 5 years ago, I have a classmate named Carl, and he was very good in our math subject. Like, he can solve everything, like problem solving. So that was 5 years ago, but still, I can remember it. I can clearly recall everything about him. So it is permanent. Unlike sa short-term memory, example of that is me myself personally, like in the classroom, if the teacher discuss something that is not familiar with me, there are some instances that I cannot recall it after the class. So that is one of the example of the short-term memory. You can forget the information that you got easily, but not directly, like maybe after 5 minutes or 3 minutes. So that is an example of the short-term memory. So we're done with the long-term memory and the short-term memory. Let's go with the sensory register. Sensory register is like how we're going to receive information as well, but through senses. For example, you sense something, you saw something, or you smell something that is not good in yourself, or kanang produce sa imuha, like bad odor, and then maka-remember ka ang siya nga baho, kay kuan din siya kanang baho ni siya sa kanang paibaron sa kanang kuan, hugaw baron sa mga animals, sa mga hayop. So mano siya sensory register. We store information using our senses, and we input that in our memory. So again, stimulus, maano siya ang nag-trigger. This is the reason, or nag-trigger sa to para mag-process ani nga information, and then right after that, we act it out. We act it out as a response. So in response, we have here two parts. So first is the sensation. When we say sensation, it is all about the feelings that we felt over something. So we felt something because we're driven or we're triggered us to do something. So for example, like a child saw a candle and he tried to touch it. So the time that he touched the candle, she got burned. So the next time she will saw again a candle, of course she will not touch it again because she might be afraid to get burned. The next is perception. So what is perception? Perception is how you're going to interpret your sensation or your feelings about certain objects or information. So for example, you saw something like a picture that is very unfamiliar, but then you're going to interpret, or you have your own perception about that kind of subject. So you have your own interpretation. it could be similar to the other people or different perspective from them. And the next is attention. Attention is very common word. So example of that is like hearing. Me, I discuss something, but then the outside is very noisy. So in order for you guys to understand about my topic, then you have to listen attentively or you have to pay attention. Okay, next is encoding. So what is encoding? Encoding is, of course, it is still input your information, your memory, but this type is, it has a little different. So why is it different? Because you can recall information through visual, through sound, or through semantics. So first, let's go back with the visual. For example, me personally, whenever I study my notes, I rewrite it and then I picture it out. How I wrote everything. So during the exam, whenever I see a question that is very familiar to me, then I can picture it out like, oh, ako di siyang isuwat diri kita. So mo niya akong answer. Like maka-visualize ko sa akong i-take note. So mo na siya ang example sa visual, like maka-picture out yung ka. And then next po sa kuan sa visual is ang audio or the sound. So in what way we can recall information man through using sounds. For example, when you hear something from your friends or from someone or from somewhere, then you can recall it. Like you can answer directly your questions during your exams because you heard it from your teacher, from your classmates, from your peers. So that's how it works in the sound or in the audio. And the next is the semantic. Semantic is it refers to the definition itself of the certain word or certain information. For example, if someone will ask me what is cognitivism, oh, I remember that cognitivism is all about how you receive information. So since that is the definition of cognitivism, then I can say that it is semantics. It's because I can recall it through the definition of the certain words. So, muna siya ang atong gitawag na semantics, which is nabilong na siya sa encoding. Next is the memory. So, memory, it is where we input, it is where we store our information. It's either permanently or temporarily or the sensory register or through the senses that we got the information. So, next here is the schema, assimilation, accommodation, and equilibration. So, what is schema? The first one here is the schema. Schema is receiving new information. So, when we say new information, of course, you don't have any idea about that kind of information because it is new to you. And then, next one is the assimilation. Assimilation is somehow similar to this schema, but there's a little different as well. So, ganun different man, na may ano naman sa kalihan, pero di dyan inunta po ilang kalahian. So, for example, sa schema, there is a child, he saw a dog. And then, before he identify that kind of animal, like before niya na-identify nga dog na siya, he asked her mama, "Mom, I saw something. It has 4 legs, it has a tail, and it barks, and it has it's hairy too." So the mom of the child will told him that it is a dog. So in here, assimilation, he saw something the same. It has 4 legs too, it has tail, it has 2 eyes, it's hairy, and it's bark. But then, this one, in this moment, alright, at nga time is, yung nakita is smaller siya. Before yung nakita sa schema, bigger siya compared sa nakita karon. So, there is assimilation, uh, he still input information just like before, but then he can differentiate lang na there are different sizes sa animal, specifically sa dog. So again, schema is not input siya og new information because you don't have any idea what is dog is and how it looks like. And then sa assimilation, again, same information but different ang details. Why? It's because in schema, bigger ang dog. But then sa assimilation, conditional type is smaller, iyang nakita. So there are different sizes. Maka-different siya og details but same og information, like general lang. Next is accommodation. So what is accommodation? Accommodation is receiving new information or creating new information. So example gyapon na ni atong i-connect atong example. Example na to ani is same child gihapon, siya gihapon, and then that child saw an animal gihapon. So what kind of animal it is? It has 4 legs, it's hairy, it has tail. But this time, what he saw is it won't bark, but the sound is meh. So of course he will ask his mom, and then his mom replied, "No, it's not dog, baby, but it's ego." So this time, nasa new information nga na-create, nasa new information nga na-receive ug na-stored sa iyang mind. So aside sa na siya na-create nga information is maka-differentiate na po siya nga ang dog ug ang goat is different. Right? So, muna siya ang kahalahian sa tulo, but connected gahapon. Because you cannot accommodate or assimilate information without getting information man, or wala kayo na-stored yung information sa imong mind or sa imong memory. Next is equilibration. Equilibration is the balance of the two, assimilation and accommodation. So, why is it need man nga ma-balance? Of course, we need to balance our information, like how we're going to organize it, how we're going to process it, because dili man maayo ang mag-receive ra ta og information. It's because there are some instances na kanina siyang information is nakatuna na din mo, but then magtuon kag balik bisag ka nagkaibaw nakadaan. So in order to save time, but dili jud siya inga paano tasa di ay ginawa sa kuno. So again, equilibration is the balance of the two, assimilation and accommodation. So we need to balance in things like how we receive information and how we're going to differentiate information and how we create information again, different from what we have stored before. So it's because if we cannot balance the two, assimilation and accommodation, there are possibilities nga kanang maglisod kag differentiate, or you cannot differentiate the information that kanang na-stored na sa imong panahon na o kanang na-receive lang nimo bago pa. Now, since we're done talking what is cognitivism and what is called that triggered us to ferment information, and that is stimulus, we already tackled also the cognitive processes and how we're going to respond or to act it out. Now, let's proceed with the general example of the cognitive or cognitivism. So we have here the student's perspective and then the teacher's perspective. So in student's perspective, how are they going to get or receive information in the classroom setup? So here, student's perspective, cognitivism, how we receive information. So how does the student receive information? So first, we have here the visual aid, oral recitation, and then the activity. So through the visual aid that the teacher presented in the class, the students will get information from it. And then another is oral recitation. So in what way does oral recitation help students to receive information? Of course, if the teacher asks the student to participate in the oral recitation, the student will formulate thoughts or brainstorming for them to get score by answering the teacher's question. And the next is the activity. So in activity like giving questionnaire about something related to the topic that the teacher gave to the student or discussed to the student, it will help also the student to formulate information, like they try to recall everything that the teacher discussed in order for them to answer everything. So that is how the student get information through visual aid, through oral recitation and activity. So actually, there is more processes or more ways in how the students receive information from the teacher or in the classroom setup. So not just that, but we only just write 3 examples. So visual aid, oral recitation, and activity, and that is the information that the students get. So the last year is the student. So in teacher's perspective, how does the teacher receive information from her student? So here we have the cognitivism, how the teacher receives information from the student. So we have here first the oral participation. So the teacher can say that when the students participate during the oral participation, then they can he or she can conclude that this student have listened to him attentively during the discussion, because he can answer everything during the oral participation. And then next is participation again. So participation is like, okay, whenever the teacher knows that or sees something student that always participate and then cooperate everything in the class, then therefore she can think that, or she can say that these students get the topic of what you have discussed and what you have said to the class. And then the next is the presentation. So when the teacher asks the student to present something and then the student was able to present it very well, then the teacher can say as well that this student was very good in presenting his or her presentation. So with these 3 options, what I have mentioned earlier, it is the information that the teacher can get from the student. Well, this one and the other side is the information that can get the students from the teacher. So that is the example of the cognitivism. Both sides inside the classroom, how the teacher receives information and how the students receive information.